When I go, don't cry for me. In my Father's arms I'll be. The wounds this world left on my soul will all be healed and I'll be whole. Sun and moon will be replaced with the light of Jesus' face. And I will not be ashamed, for my Savior knows my name. It don't matter where it be. I'll be home and I'll be free. It don't matter where I lay. All my tears be washed away. Washed away. Be washed away.
It's been a long couple of months, but we're making it through, and we're all know that he's in a better place now, and we don't have to worry about that. He was in a body like all of ours that's failing, and now he's not. He's been waiting for this since he started losing his hair. But I could stand here and list all his accomplishments, of which there are many, too many to accomplish, starting in high school and going straight through to Senior World Games. And you might see, well, yeah, that is the Senior World Games right there, right on cue. And he did it all. He got through almost everything that he wanted to do. The only thing that he never reached in his ultimate goal was an Olympic gold medal. But he started the Pan American Games in 71, 72, dislocated his shoulder in the championship match, kept wrestling with his dislocated shoulder, made it, got the silver medal, but aced himself out of the Olympics with his injury. And in the Olympic trials for Montreal in 76, he won the Olympic trials, but in the last match was shooting in on the guy and hooked his thumb on the guy's headgear, and it looked like one of those big giant, it looked about like this big, and it swelled up, so he was unable to wrestle. And how many years I heard the stories of, I beat that guy that won this, and I beat that guy, I could have won it, I would have had a gold medal. But it still wasn't there. And then he was, for the 80 Olympics, he was in pretty peak shape and had been working out for a while trying to get ready for it. And he would have been 36, which is pretty darn old by wrestling standards, as I'm sure a lot of you know. But then they boycotted, the US boycotted the Olympics in Moscow in 80, so he didn't get to do that either. So he was always chasing it. And then 84, he would have been like 40 years old, and he realized at that point that he had missed that. But then he'd missed what he'd always been striving for, and it was just a bit out of reach. But despite all of that, he coached and had a whole slew of championships and coaching Olympic teams, Olympic gold medalists, and, well, several medalists, and then went into coaching a lot of the MMA, Sambo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. He was one of the first and early adapters to the cross-training and using other disciplines to his advantage, which is now what every fighter has to do to actually make it in MMA or most anything now. So he was ahead of his time in that. But I think if you were to ask him what he was most proud of, I think it would be his testimony and his faith in God. He went all over the world, North and South America, Europe, Siberia, Russia, even when it was the USSR and free Russia. He went to communist Poland, Bulgaria, Iran, Armenia, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, all the stands. And he got followed around and reported on by the KGB, chased from the cafeteria at Tehran University by protesters weeks before the hostages were taken. But whatever he was, or wherever he was, he took Bibles and tracts that were written in the language, of the local language, and shared the gospel. And these were jailable offenses, if not worse, in a lot of the places he went. But he was never afraid to share with anyone about the good news that had changed his life. Out in the water, on the beach, in the gym, wherever he was and whenever, he wasn't afraid to share. Putting his life on the line, putting your life on the line for what you believe in takes a lot more balls than fighting or winning a championship or an Olympic gold medal. And he kept doing that his whole life. He would eschew his fees at times for clinics and wrestling camps, but ask if he could take a little time at the end to share his testimony with the wrestlers, and even in his last few weeks, as he stayed up nights with the nurse that came in, the guy that saw him and took care of him while Bernie was unable to. And he sat up and talked with him about God, and they were both Christians, but they just sat and talked about it right to the end. He was still stayed true to who he was. Although he never got the gold medal he strived for, I think he did so much more for so many other people, not just getting a medal that will tarnish and grow dull over the years, but saving countless souls and storing up his treasure where it really matters in heaven. In my youth, he was the greatest dad. He was really fun. He was the strongest man in the world to me. And somebody would come up and go, "Oh, my dad can beat up your dad," or "My dad's bigger than yours." And I would just confidently go, "No, he can't." They go, "Yeah, he can. My dad's big." And you're like, okay. You just keep believing that. And it was always, we were wrestling. We had a wrestling mat in the garage and a toy chest full of Bataka bats and boxing gloves and headgear, and would just have all for free for all. And my dad would come out and wrestle with us against all the kids on the block, and we'd play soccer against my dad and the dog and every sport. And if he was starting to lose even a little bit, then the rules seemed to sort of vanish, and a lot more hip checks and leg sweeps started. But when he disciplined me, he always disciplined me and said that he loved me and he was doing this to teach me to be a better man. And it was, even though I was mad at the time, I did learn a lesson. It took a while. I wish he would have carried it on a little more in my teen years where I really needed it. And he was all into nutrition and working out, which I'm sure you guys know. And which meant we were all into nutrition and working out. Every morning before school, in grade school, I had to do 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups and work out with weights 3 times a week, or I didn't get my allowance. And there was a magic custard bowl. And I say magic because it magically never had custard in it. But it was always filled with vitamins every morning, anew for us to take. When it was time for sports and on teams, he would teach me and train me and drill me, not just for the moves and the repetition of it, but for the word. I'm sure most of you have heard Philippians 4:13 almost as much as I have. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He drilled that into me on almost a daily basis. He used it in sports, in surfing, in school, in work, and in tests. And he used other verses about running the good race, giving your all, going the extra mile. And his other motto, do the work. He always pushed you for more, drilled you over and over, and always say, that's good, but here's how you can do it better next time. Even in surfing, he was a coach. If you think it's just surfing and you're just playing around in the water and it's not a competition, you'd be wrong, because everything is a competition with him. I remember surfing dawn patrols several days a week at Lowers. Brent Euler would be calling up my parents at 5 o'clock in the morning, waking them up and telling them that it was firing, even if it wasn't. And we'd go down there and surf for a while, and after catching a good wave, he would tell me, that was a good wave I saw you on, but you could have hit that a little harder on the bottom turn and projected more power off the top. Then the next time, or you could go into that wave early if you dug harder on the takeoff, etc., etc. And I realized as a kid, and even more so as a teen, that we had to share our Father with others. But I don't think it's that I really realized it until the last 4 to 5 years or so, when he was getting older and in poorer health. And I was spending a lot more time, almost every weekend and even some of the weekdays, up at his house and seeing the different people, a lot of you guys out here, different people he coached and befriended over the years, call or come by, and had time to sit and hang out, share a meal and talk story. And they would open up a bit and give a greater insight on how he had changed their lives in one way or another. Some of the stories were heartbreaking and some were mind-blowing, but they almost always ended in, "Your dad was like a father to me," or "Your dad was the only father figure I had," or "I wouldn't be here today if your dad wasn't around," or "Your dad taught me how to be a man on and off the mat." And my sadness or anger or resentment I had for times that he wasn't there for me when I thought I needed him melted away, because I know that he was there for me already and he had taught me what to do and how to handle it, and that these countless other people needed him in a way more than I did. And God put him there for a reason. And it was so cathartic for me and gave me such a deeper insight on who he was and his true character. And it helped me to step up even more and try and be a better person myself. And when he was with Bernie on Maui this last year and a half with my aunt, I have to say thank you to, because she was key in keeping him alive as long as he did live, because she was put her time and energy into that for the last 3.5 to 4 years and was there at his side every single day. And that would have drove me crazy and probably to divorce also. But she put up with it, and a big mahalo to you, Auntie. And after so many prayers and so many times hoping that he would just find some place to go when he was over in Maui, he joined a men's group that met every Tuesday. And after he passed, they asked to take over his memorial in Maui. And each one spoke on him and his character and how he made such a difference in their life, even though none of them knew him past that year or so. They didn't know him as this powerhouse of a man, a surfer, a wrestler, wrestling coach, a champion. They only knew him as this little old frail man who walked with a walker and just shuffled in, and he still had impact on them. So you never know when or how you will change someone's life. And it's our job, every one of us, to improve the next generation, to make the next generation better than us, which is what he did. And in whatever way we can, it's our job to make our roof their floor, so that we lift them up and make them better and stronger than us. And in doing so, they rise higher than we ever could. And I stand here confident that my father is at the gates of heaven meeting the Lord, and he's looking down at my dad and saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And if my dad is looking at us right now, I know for certain he would say, "That's great, son, but next time here's what you can do better." Thanks. Now my Aunt Laura is coming up to speak.
Well, after everything he said, what I have to say is that this big. My brother was my hero, my protector, and my best friend. I will greatly miss him. There was so many times in our life that I can go on and tell you stories about, but it'd take forever. My favorite memory is when I was a teenager and he was going to high school. He would come home and yell for me, "Laura, where are you? I'm doing something. Come here, I need you." "What do you need me for?" "Stand here. Now, go like this and then move like this. And next thing I know, I was a pretzel on the floor. So I had to learn to wrestle because he was always using me as his personal dummy. So between him and my grandfather teaching me how to box, I didn't have very many people that bothered me. And he would not let very many people around me. We would go dancing, and Alan Walty would go with us. And one time, I don't know if Alan remembers this, but we were dancing up in Palos Verdes or up at Dapple Gray or whatever, and there was a golf course there. Stan Fleener and Alan Walty decided to race on the golf course with their cars. And we had the police after us. And all I kept thinking was, when we get home, how am I going to explain this to Mom? Because my mom was forced to reckon with. And he was so good to us. He was good to me and my children. And when I had some illnesses, he took my boys and took them to Oklahoma and raised them there for a while for me. And there wasn't a single person that was a stranger to him. And that's where I get it from too. I don't see any strangers. He's a wonderful, wonderful man who has done so much for so many people. But the impact he had on my life when I was 17 was, do you know Christ? I said, yeah. He goes, well, do you have him in your heart? I said, yeah. He goes, did you ask him there? I said, no, why? I already know him. He goes, if you don't, you can't go to heaven, and that's where I'm going to be. 17, I said, okay. And I have never, ever looked back. It has been the best step I ever took in my life, is having him there, telling me, go. And he took me tracking. He took me, what was that? Campus Crusade for Christ had the camp or something up there, summer camp. Oh, man. I never had so much fun. But boy, did you learn a lot. And he was just smiling. And I know he's smiling down on all of us. And I know that he loved every one of you that are here, because my brother's biggest thing was bringing people to the Lord. It was over wrestling, and it was over surfing. It was the most important thing to him. And I'm going to miss him dearly. And I talked to him the night before he left to go to be with Dara and my mom. And I told him to go, that he didn't have to take care of me and Bernie anymore. And so he left. He said, thank you, and I love you. And I told him I loved him. But my sister, my brother used to tell me I was made of steel. No, she was. She had to put up with his cranky old butt. You know, like you said, you'd have probably had a divorce. He is a lovely man, but he can get cranky. And I respect her, and I thank her for everything she did for my brother. You know, because I couldn't do any of it. I have health issues. And I'm not coming yet. I'm going to stay until 100, so. And I want to thank you all for being here.
In this life, when trouble comes, there's a place we can go. We can't hide in the promises that when trouble comes is when we grow. Peace in the middle of the storm. Peace in the middle of the storm. Winds of change may blow your way. There's peace in the middle of the storm. Peace in peace in the middle of the storm. His mercy's new for us today. His peace in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the storm. In this world, you never know when your time has come. But we can be sure that when it's time, we'll have peace of mind, that the battle's won. Peace in the middle of the storm. Peace in the middle of the storm. Winds of change may blow your way. There's peace in the middle of the storm. Peace in the middle of the storm. Peace in the middle of the storm. His mercy's new for us today. There's peace in the middle of the storm. It's gonna be alright. 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 It's gonna be alright.
I haven't said anything yet. You know, and what Shane was talking about and what he had said, there was a lot that resonated with me and a lot of those experiences with his father. I was one of those guys that was definitely touched by what he poured into every other person that he coached. So, I mean, I can't put into words how much he affected my life and had great influence on it. You know, I think I first met Bob, I might have been in 3rd grade, and he was my coach from then on till through 2 Olympic teams. I was right there with him with no gold medal, but still enjoyed the ride for sure. Without him, and he was a father figure to me as well, and my, even though my dad was coaching right alongside with him, you know, I had a kind of double bad with all you guys. I don't know if all you guys know, but if your dad is your coach, it's a lot tougher on you than usually the other guys on the team, and so I had basically 2 of those dads as my coach, and you know, and I attribute my mental toughness, my work ethic, everything that I've done in my life to, you know, both those men, especially Bob, you know, in a different way. He was the nicer dad of the 2. You know, I've traveled all over the world with Bob and just, you know, enjoyed every minute of it. He was, like Shane had said, he was a fun guy to be around. You know, a lot of energy, a lot of goofiness in him, and you know, it was, you know, just somebody that really has shaped my life. You know, it's really hard to put into words like I said, everything that he's done for me, and I remember, you know, he talked about how much Bob loved surfing, but I really don't think he wanted us wrestlers to surf, because he would say, hey, we're going to the beach. He would drop us off at the beach about 3 or 4 miles, 5 miles away, and then he would go and surf somewhere, and we'd have to run down the beach to get to him. And then he'd say, here's the surfboard, paddle out past the break, down about a mile, back a mile, and then if you want, you could surf. And nobody had any energy after that, even so just laying on the board. And, you know, maybe not the running part, but the surfing part and paddling part, he would go out there and do it with us, and he'd be way ahead of us, and we'd be trying to keep up, and he just loved it and didn't think that was hard work. But us wrestlers that didn't know how to paddle very well, half of us couldn't get out past the break. So that was, I really don't think he wanted us to surf. You know, and later on, past my wrestling career, I started fighting, and you know, Bob still had a great influence on me there, and just, like I said, the mental toughness, you know, it really helps in wrestling, but I think it helped even more in MMA. You know, so, and I feel like I accomplished quite a bit, and I would not have done that without Bob and the spiritual guidance and the mental attitude that he kind of instilled in me. Wouldn't have accomplished anything. So I appreciate that, you know, everything that he's done for me, and I know that he's done that with so many people. He was the most selfless man that I think I've ever met. Just most coaches nowadays, or any time, would coach and say, hey, you know, it's going to cost this much. And Bob never cared about making money doing it. He cared about how he was affecting people, and the coach that he could be to make them better at what they wanted to be better at, which most of the time was wrestling. I know that, you know, the first year that I knew Bob, and he had started a program at Camp Pendleton, and, you know, the parents would drop their kids off Friday afternoon and pick them up Sunday night. And I think it was like $6 or something that it cost them for a babysitter all weekend. And that included room and board. We would stay in the old Quonset huts, and, you know, we'd act like we're in the Marines, jogging and singing songs and jogging to Chow Hall and eating and then going back. We would have at least 4 or 5 practices every day, weightlifting, wrestling. It was just constant, and it was fun for us to be in that atmosphere. And you know, those are some of the great memories I've had of Bob, and just a testament to what he loved to do, and didn't care about the financial, you know, any money for it, you know, which, you know, is a big sacrifice to teach others. So I appreciated him for everything. So, you know, thank you guys for coming, and that's about all I got to say.
Thank you. Alan, it's your turn. Here's one of my dad's oldest friends. They were getting into trouble since probably beginning of high school. And he was still hanging out with them up to the end. So he's probably got some really bad stories.
Are you going to tell them what about you throwing M80s over the
No,
Wall
not talking.
freeway?
Hi. I've been seriously impacted by this whole deal. I had some notes I was gonna read, but I'm not gonna read them. I'm just gonna tell you, I met Bob in '59. How did I meet him? He went out for varsity football. I went out for varsity football, and Cliff Davis over here with us, that came today, was out for varsity football. Bob had moved, I guess he had been in Hermosa Beach before that, and he moved over into Walteria, and he was out South High. So Bob and I sort of struck up a friendship, and at the time at South High, it was the most cliquey high school that you've ever been to in your life. People did not talk to other people that were outside of their clique. I befriended Bob, and we would go into lunchtime and sit at the tables, and I would take him around to every table in the place and introduce him to anybody that I knew. And it ended up like Bob really loved that. So we did football together, wrestling together, track and field just for fun, but we were out all year for sports. In 1960, me, Cliff Davis, Gene Bernard, and several other people started a surf club called the Haggerty Surf Club. And the current president of Haggerty Surf Club is sitting somewhere in the audience over here, Lonnie Albright. He was also in the founding of Haggerty Surf Club. I won't get into all the details of why that came along, but I can just say that we surfed a lot. We'd come over to my house after we could drive. Everybody was storing their boards in my patio. We'd throw in the back of my '56 Chevy wagon and head down to Torrance Beach and surf. Then we'd surf and we'd get really into it, you know? And we didn't have any watches on, we didn't know what that time was. Turns out, like, we were late to school a lot of times, and we knew this young lady that worked in the administration office, and she wrote us excuse and hall passes to get into our classes late, and that's Sandy Zimmerman sitting right back here in black. So she promoted our surfing skills and let it fly. So Bob and I were really good friends for a long time. Through high school, we went to El Camino together, and then Bob went to Adams State. Well, my mom knew that Bob and his family were sort of tight on money. My mom helped with his tuition, his books, and getting warm clothes because she knew he was going to one of the coldest places in the United States at Adams State College. She bought him a down jacket that was awesome. So I sort of lost him for a while because I went to Cal Poly and did my thing in the Central Coast. And then I came back. And then years later, we were at a high school reunion. Bob walks in, and who's there but one of his first girlfriends, Darlene Torgerson. And I don't know if you guys know the story about Darlene Torgerson, but they got back together. There was other wives in between. I'm not going to get into it because everybody that I met that he was involved with were good people. So I don't want to get into anything about other wives. But Darlene was amazing. And if you know Bob, if you really know Bob, 99% of the time, he is the most gracious guy in the world. But if it ever gets to a competitive thing, watch out, Bob can get pretty crazy. Anyways, ends up that Bob proposed to Darlene. Does anybody know where? In the audience? On a wrestling mat at the Atlanta Olympics on broadcast television. It was a big story all over everywhere. Okay? And so when he married her, he moved back to the Redondo Beach area, and we struck up our old friendship. We started surfing together all over the place. I had surfed many times when he lived in Seal Beach and San Clemente and all these other places. But now he was back in Redondo, and we struck up a good friendship. We went out and paddled a lot to get in shape for surfing because we were older. And we started surfing a lot, and we surfed the South Bay area. We'd go back down to, we're a little bit too old for lower trestles, but we'd go to San O. And everybody at San O, when he showed up, they go, "How you doing, Coach? What's going on? What are you doing with your life?" So we had a good time at San O meeting. I met a lot of people I would have never known. So all the way to the end, Darlene and Bob were the most gracious people that you could ever meet. They invited me over to watch football. They were both college and NFL. And we always, every year, would watch the NCAA wrestling finals on television, Bob and I. So, a lifelong friend. I'm really gonna miss him. But he's in a better place now. So God bless Bob.
All right, we're gonna play one more song for you.
Hey Chris, your vocals aren't in the down.
Well, I feel a warm wind blow, melting all the sadness off of my soul. And I smell sweet cherry blossom, pouring all the gladness into my soul. In winter, I believe you. In springtime, I see you. It's so good to be with you. My hope has come. Lord, you make all things new. Your love is my breakthrough. Now I sing hallelujah. My hope has come. Now I walk through the valley of the shadow. I have been tested like silver and gold. All your faith has taught me to cherish this life. Affliction is not my home. In winter, I believe you. In springtime, I see you. It's so good to be with you. My hope has come. Lord, you make all things new. Your love is my breakthrough. Now I sing hallelujah. My hope has come. Now I'm not gonna give in to this mortal frustration, and I'm not gonna give death any standing ovation. I will lift up my soul now with no hesitation. 'Cause between you and me there is no separation. In winter, I believe you. In springtime, I see you. It's so good to be with you. My hope has come. Lord, you make all things new.
Joseph, you're up, Mr. Joseph Allison.
Shane, could you tell me anything about the band? I'd like to stoke that up, you know? That
Well,
was really cool.
yeah, these are all just some guys I found.
Oh, just some guys you found, huh?
These
really?
are my good friends. I'm honored to call them my good friends, and thank you for pointing out the fact that I didn't introduce them like they should be introduced.
Yeah, I'd just like to throw some
Because
love to
they're-
the band because they sound amazing,
This is Rocky here on the
right?
keyboard.
Let's hear it for the band.
The Eichlers, Brian Icky Eichler and Jamie Eichler on vocals and drums. Mr. Kid Ramos on lead guitar. He should need an introduction to you, he's just that good. And the guy walking back and talking to the sound guy trying to get things done is Mr. Chris Lazat. And I love to call these guys my friends and get to play with them a lot. And I thank them profusely for coming here and playing with me today. And with no further ado, Mr. Joseph Allison.
Well, thank you, Shane. And yeah, I just really wanted to throw some energy to the band because I really like what you guys are doing. It feels really good. And I also just wanted to say, you know, I'm pretty stoked you gave me the opportunity to get on the mic, Shane. Must have took a little courage. Anyway, but I really, out of respect, want to say how much I loved Bob, your dad, and that, you know, that thing that is a real common theme with him is that he was a father figure to so many people, and also like a big brother, uncle, whichever, how old you were, however that fit, you know. But what didn't really resonate with me younger when I met him, which was through you, at the time I didn't realize how much you guys were sharing your dad, and how he gave himself so much to so many of us. And later in life, I started thinking about that, going, man, that must have been kind of gnarly to be, you know, that's your dad. And he's just so stoked on so many people and just really gave himself. So I want to thank you, Drew, and Lars for, you know, sharing your dad with us. It's very emotional for me. Really, truly. For me personally, probably no one really knows this about me, but it's sharing personal. My father got killed when I was 1 year old. So growing up without a dad, having, when Bob came in my life, you know, is extra touching for me because the way he gives himself, you know, to everybody, the way he just did that was such a big brother, dad, such a moral mentor. He didn't just teach you about whatever sport you were training, or he just really couldn't help but find that way into you that you needed to hear what you needed to hear from a Christ love first, from a, you know, being a good man, and then of course, as was referenced by Dan, you know, and his sister. I mean, and everyone, really, Alan, everyone talks about this. You know, when it comes to being competitive, that's a freight train, you know? He's not messing around. He gets pretty, right? He's very intense about it. So with that said, I want to, you know, talk a little bit about, well, first of all, Shane, you and I talked about when we come to speak that, you know, we would try to fit it into some sort of a particular amount of minute window, and I want to say I'm going to respect that because otherwise I could probably be up here for a couple hours talking about Bob because I loved him that much. But I won't do that, okay? I'm going to respect everyone's time because, you know, why wouldn't I? You know, when I first met Bob was actually through Shane. I had seen Bob around, and he always, like, I relate to people as, sometimes I see people and like they remind me of a movie star. And sometimes, some certain people. And I always thought he reminded me of Sylvester Stallone. Right? Huh? I mean, a lot of people have said that, and I thought I was the originator of that theory, but then I'd say it, and people go, dude, we all think that. He talks, I don't know if who's older, but whatever, they're very similar. So he's like a movie star to me, and just, you know, obviously Sylvester Stallone had a lot of success. So, but anyway, so there's that part. And then, so when we first met, you know, Shane, I wanted to go train as a surfer, as an athlete, not a wrestler. I wanted to go, I've always looked for mentors in strength training. My first mentor, everyone knows, what's that old, huh? You know, you got me. So yeah, as a little kid, Jack LaLanne just blew my mind, right? He's kind of a geeky guy, a little bit, if you ask me. You know, he wasn't like someone I thought was cool, but he just blew my mind as like a kid just seeing what he could do. All the way till he was an older man and he was swimming boats across the Ingalls Channel and he's, tied to, just incredible what this guy did, right? So I always thought he was amazing. There was another man in this town growing up, he's a couple years older than me. Anyone from here knows his name is Tom Philibar. He's a world arm wrestling champion, amazing gymnast. He's like 68 and still possibly qualifying on the Olympics right now. It's kind of an amazing story, but he's also someone that's always been a mentor to me as far as strength training. Then there was Bob Anderson, who I met. So I came over to Shane's house and I was like, hey, I want your dad to train me. And, Bob was there. At the time, this is like late 80s. And Shane had hair about down to here. And it was kind of a wild time. Shane was in a band called Johnny Monster and the Nightmares. I don't know how many people remember that. Okay, I want to reference that. I know Josh was here, but his oldest brother, David Paskowitz, was a singer in that band. Shane was a bassist in that band. It was an iconic band. I mean, they cruised around town in a hearse. It was just a really amazing time to be in our town and what was going on. It was kind of a wild time, but it was a good time. And so like I said, Shane had hair about down to here. Is that right, Shane? Okay. And I had hair not quite as long as you. I think you had the longest hair of all of us. And maybe except for Chad, who's here right now. I think Chad also had hair. Chad had hair about that long. Not that having long hair is such a big deal, but whatever. It was at the time. It was kind of cool. Anyway, so I had long hair about down to here, pretty wild kind of hair. And then, so I'm coming to meet Bob, and Shane introduces me. We're at their house right when they were behind Stewart's right there, and he had his gym in the garage, and it was an incredible gym. I never lifted weights at this point in my life. I just always did natural fitness training, used my body and did everything natural, no weights. I always thought weights would make me slower, so he taught me otherwise. But anyway, so he introduced me, and I say to I meet him, and I'm like, hey, yeah, I want to train with you. And he looks at me, and he just looks at me and goes, and you were right there, and you remember this. He goes, I don't train surfers. They're just a bunch of flakes. And I'm sitting there going, really? That's kind of gnarly, because you surf. What do you mean? You're like putting down our whole tribe. I'm feeling disrespected right now. But I mean, I kind of get where he's coming from also, So anyway, I'm like, no, come on. And then he's kind of over me. He's just, beat it, you long-haired tripper. Anyway, so then Shane looks at me. Shane goes, no, with Shane's signature, coolest deep voice. I've always thought you still have the coolest voice, Pretty sure Drew's going to get up and show us the next level of that. But I'm just saying, he just has this really cool voice. Anyway, and he speaks Shane kind of has this slower way. I obviously speak a little faster and a little more kinetic, right? So, or hyperphonetic. So anyway, Shane goes, no, Dad, caveman solid. and I'm sitting there going, well, that's cool. I'm not getting totally barred right now, So then his dad looks at me and goes, kind of looks at me, scopes in on me and goes, you know how serious he's, so gnarly. Anyway, he looked at me and go, okay, $300. And I'm sitting there going, I mean, you understand back then, $300 is like $1,000 now, right? So I'm sitting there going, I'm feeling my wallet going, whew, okay. But I just go, done. So I give him the $300, and that's for a month. I'm paying $300 for a month. You know what I mean? So I tell him this, I go, here's the deal. You show me your system. You don't got to hold my hand. I'm a totally self-motivated guy. There's never going to be an issue with me coming. However, my schedule, variable, I might be here different times. I'm not going to just always be here at one time a day. My schedule's kind of, so I might even be here at midnight sometime training just because I'll always get it done. I'm totally committed. And he looks at me like, okay, he doesn't really get what that means. So anyway, we start doing it. He shows me the system. It's an awesome system. And to this day, I'm still using a lot of his techniques. Anyway, so one night I'm in the, huh?
Turn around and look.
How fitting is the timing? Look at that. Anyway, so then I'm in there one night. As I told him, I'll be here at different times. It's like midnight. He had a 6 stereo in there, and I got this thing cranking because I like to train with really loud, hard rock. And but it's like midnight, and it's right next to the house. So I'm in there just lifting all by myself, super loud music. And Bob comes in his PJs and opens the door. He goes, like rubbing his eyes, going, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And I go, "What does it look like I'm doing, dude? I'm training. Beat it." I get pissed when I train. So he just looks at me and shakes his head and goes, "Whoa, okay, whatever." So then I was so after the first month, I was stoked to stick with him. So I come in and I go, "Hey, I want to pay you for the next month." And this is kind of a big moment for me. Bob says, "No, you don't pay anymore. I'm actually inspired by you, and I want you to be my training partner." And I was like, whew, that was a big moment of feeling pretty, kind of respected and legit. So from that point forward, we started actually training together, motivating each other and getting all gnarly. So that was really a fun thing for me. I would say the next thing on my little list of supposedly keeping it short, but good luck with that. I introduced, so a good friend of mine, see, Bob's, it is what it is, sorry. Anyway, so Bob really did love surfing, right? And like everyone knew that he was a full gnarly world-class wrestler, jiu-jitsu, just full on, on that side of life, but he surfed. And it was hard to integrate him over, and he did. Some people did come and bring some world-class people to him, but at one point, a good friend of mine, his name is Shane Beshin, and he's from this town, and he was on the U.S. tour, and he was competing for the title, and my other good friend Dino, and Dino won the title in 1990, but the next year, I believe, was Mike Parsons won the title, and Shane was running for that title, and when he didn't win and Mike Parsons won, Shane was devastated, and he's a really good friend of mine to this day, and I came over during like the break, between like Christmas break, and he was completely devastated. He was just so down, and I came to him and I saw him all mopey and down, and I'm like, "Hey man, cry your tears, it's all good. But when you're done, get it out, it's all good. But when you're done, I'm gonna take you, I'm gonna introduce you to this man, and he's gonna change things for you. But you gotta commit." And he looks at me with this spark, and he goes, "Oh, really?" And I go, "Yeah, but just go do your little mopey thing for as long as you need to, but when you're ready." So, I don't know, within a few days, he calls me, and I introduce him to Bob. They gel really well. Shane trained for 6 weeks, stormed onto the 1992 U.S. Tour, smoked that tour, was 3 contests before it was even done, he already won the U.S. title. So it was always a real proud moment for me to actually bring a surfer to Bob, watch Bob do his deal, and turn my really good friend into a U.S. champion who then stormed onto the World Tour and became one of the most successful people from this town on the World Tour. At one point was number 2 in the world, up with Slater. And he always had this thing, with training, and it just really was a cool thing. So I want to say I feel really good about being the catalyst of that. Yeah. And then there was another moment that was pretty cool. So we did this, Jeff New is a man, he's a filmmaker from this town. Back in the day, he made a movie called San Clemente Locals. I don't know if anyone remembers that. But it was a colorful little kind of film that was, So we were doing a little skit in there. I had this little surf tribe, or whatever you want to call it, called the Hood, which it's not as dark as it sounds. It was basically meant the brotherhood of the neighborhood. It was just a bunch of us guys that surfed, kind of just a bunch of characters in this little surf kind of tribe or whatever. So we did a little skit in the movie, which was to kind of try to protect our local break, Lowers Trestles. It was really world-class break. They have world-class contests there. And we did a little skit where we would run down and try to play this takeover at Trestles, and we did that. And we had Bob on it. We're gonna put it on the edit when we do it. We had Bob on, and he ran down in the footage, and I'm gonna show it. It's so classic. He's literally wearing boots, black boots to here, okay? And he's got his classic, banana hammock, whatever, Speedo, right? He's running down with some gnarly hat, and he's running like a beach gorilla, just running, just incredible. So we have the footage, we can prove it, it's super cool. I'll put that in the edit. Yeah, Lars, you guys remember that. So anyway, one more is that, so then it came time a few years later. I had always stayed training with Bob, and we were doing all kinds of cool stuff, really intense stuff. And then he comes to me, so I become a guy that first paid $300 for a month to train with him. Then after that, he says, no, you don't pay anymore. You train with me. And then he comes to me, and he's got Dan and Heath, and they're about to train for the 96 U.S. Olympics, the trial team. And he comes to me and says, hey, you know, you want to come train with us and kind of be my assistant? And I'm like, yeah, where do you twist my arm first? Where, you know, how are we going to do that? So we did this thing with Dan and Heath and some guys where we did a thing called the Hundreds Program. And what the Hundreds Program is you do, just try to imagine this. So I don't know if you know much about weightlifting or training or whatever, but imagine you do max, like you lift weights and you push it like the max that you could do. So say if it was like bench press and you could push 300 pounds 1 or 2 times. Trying to get that through your, you know, just get that together. Okay, so then he had this thing called the Hundreds Program where you do 2/3 max, which, so if that was 300 pounds, now you're doing 200 pounds. 100 reps straight. Do you remember that, Dan? Oh my gosh. So, I mean, think about it. So what we did is we did 16 different body parts, like a race, straight through. So 1,600 reps, 2/3 max, anyway, by the time we were done, we were doing it in like 25 minutes, right in there was what we were doing. And it was it's just absolutely disgusting, is what it is. But the cool thing is, that just gives you a picture. Like, we've talked a lot about how the different things he was a trainer, but this gives you a picture of the kind of what you were what you were going to be doing. So what I can say is that I will be 66 years old in a couple weeks, and I still to this day utilize Bob's techniques in what I do and people that I train. And I'm just so thankful to have that influence in my life. Thank you so much for helping Shane, him, and me connect. You know what I'm saying? So I love you guys. I was hoping that we could do a thing where, you know, we could all stand up and just kind of just stand up and like give Bob a, like, in surfing we scream when we're stoked. Bob's in heaven. I would like him to actually hear us stand up and scream our love for him as in a kind of a surfer hoot. You know what I'm saying? So if I could lead the tribe, if I will, the Bob and woo! Woo! We love you, Bob. Thank you.
Now here comes the cleanup batter, my baby brother, Drew.
Guys, I'm Drew, the middle son.
Yeah, the second.
I have a 17-year younger brother, so I was the baby for a lot of years. But just like to clarify, I am Bob's big boy. Might be the middle child, but I am the largest, so I get the title. Guys, first and foremost, thank you for coming. The support and the love in this room is greatly appreciated by all of us. It's amazing to see you all here. Some of you I haven't seen since I was a young child. Thank you for coming. My dad meant a lot to a lot of people, and there are so many people that he touched their lives that I cannot go through the list. And I think Joseph touched on that with the, we shared our father. I mentioned this in the memorial at Maui. It was like, I met guys there that I didn't even know. They had lived with him and trained with him when he was living on Maui before I was there. And I said, these are like brothers to me that I never knew. And I have many brothers from the time, like Dan was talking about, where we trained on Camp Pendleton. We all stayed in the Quonset huts together. It was amazing time. It was like the founding of our wrestling team. It was solidified a lot of relationships amongst the wrestlers that went on for years and years after. And so it was hard for me a little bit to share my father, but looking back, it's amazing how many brothers that I've gained through it. And some of them, like I said, I never even met, but then I meet them and telling me stories about my dad and what he did for them in their lives, and teaching them how to surf, and didn't know any of these guys, but all of a sudden they're my brothers, they're my family, and they treated me like that. I felt a kinship with them. So just amazing to me how many lives he touched. And like my brother said earlier, it was all around wrestling and surfing, and mainly to share the love of Christ. If that's the one thing that was his goal in life, besides being a champion and making champions in whatever sport that you trained in, he wanted you first and foremost to do it all to the glory of the Lord. That was the one thing he instilled in all of his children, and everyone who was one of his children beyond the three brothers. It was first and foremost in his life. And I hope that you all have come to a place where you have a relationship with the Lord. That would be the one thing I would hope that everyone can leave here knowing that you will see him again, that he is in heaven, and he would love to greet you at the gates. So I'm not going to talk a long time. I'm really overwhelmed by all the people who did show up that came from faraway places for this. It really means a lot. It's, like I said, overwhelming. I'm amazed, all the people who really just came from great distances to be here. And I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm going to say a closing prayer. And I would like to read a verse that kind of just came to me today. It is Numbers 4:24. Okay. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon thee. Be gracious unto thee. The Lord lift up his countenance upon thee and give thee peace. So I hope that everyone can leave this time of fellowship together with a peace of the Lord, and take that along with you. All right. Heavenly Father, we just come together right now in thanks and praise for your grace and your mercies. Lord, thank you for the blessings that my father was to so many people. We have so much gratitude for his life and the things he did in your honor, Lord. I just pray that you move upon everyone's life to take a little bit of what he was and spread it to the people that come into their lives, giving back what was given to them in your name. In Jesus' name, amen. And thanks for all coming. Thanks. Appreciate it.
We're going to have some refreshments out back. You guys are welcome to stay out there. Joseph, who came up here and spoke, is going to have a camera back there. And it'd be great if any of you have any stories about my dad that you could tell him. Some of those stories are going to film it and put it all together and edit it down and make a video for the web.
So we're here at the Bob Anderson Memorial, and we're about to have a kind of a moment where we have people, you know, do what they do. They want to talk a little story about Bob. I'm here with Kyle. Kyle, how are you?
I'm doing excellent, thank you.
Well, you know, why don't you lay on me some sort of, I know you want to say something about Bob, so let's just get to it.
Absolutely. So had the pleasure to meet Coach Bob back when I was in middle school. We actually connected at a gym called No Limits over in Irvine, California. From there, we were taking his courses, his classes, and then we were fortunate to get private lessons with him. So I was wrestling back in the day when I was in 7th grade. Now fast forward, I'm coaching. I'm now a head coach at Costa Mesa High School, and I continue to share stories and just mythologies that he's taught me and shaped my wrestling career and my life. And just super blessed to have you in my life, Coach. Always will remember you, and your legacy will live on through me. Love you.
I am going to talk now to Kyle's brother, Scott, and I'm pretty sure he's got something for us.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. I'm so happy to be here, and when I think about Bob's funeral, it's really a celebration. It says in the Bible, it's to depart from the body is to be present with the Lord. And I know that Coach Bob Anderson is with the Lord right now, where every tear is wiped away. But there are so many stories, and I love what my brother said about he'd get one move and we would drill it over and over and over again. And, you know, you do it wrong, just if your finger was out of place, Bob would be telling you something.
Yep.
Kyle told me he did it so much that I started crying. I don't know about that story there, but anyways, I have a great story about Coach Bob when I was in Armenia. Flying to Armenia, I'm in 8th grade, so I haven't been in high school yet, and we're training hard. And we never really wrestled Greco. So for those who aren't wrestlers, who really don't understand, Greco is all upper body. So you can't touch the legs. And how I trained growing up is I was a freestyle guy, and we would train collegiately like you see in college. But I'm in Armenia, and we're training. We go to this one facility to where they were like Greco world champions. Okay, and I've never done this before. I might have trained a little bit in America, but now we're in Armenia. It's the real deal. And somehow I got placed with the the champion of Armenia, and I've never trained Greco. And Coach Bob was with his headband, and he's looking at me like this. I'm like, man, I better get this together right now. And we started, and what he had is, it's called a body lock, a reverse body lock, and I didn't know how to defend it. And Coach Bob would be hovering over me, and this Armenian champion was going up and tossing me, and he'd pick me up and toss me again and toss me again. And I got tossed about 15 to 20 times that day. And finally, Coach Bob comes up and goes, "Hey, you don't know how to defend this, do you?" I said, "Coach, I've been asking you over and over how the heck I could defend this thing. No, I don't know how to defend it." So he taught me how to defend it, and I'll tell you what, after that trip, I did not get tossed one time that way. And that's the type of coach he was, though. He made you learn from the mistakes, and I'll never forget how to defend it even till this day. But he's an absolute legend. I love Coach Bob.
And I'm here with Ken Workman, and I know that we've met in the past and had some good talks about Bob, but he's going to tell us a little story about his relationship with Bob, from what I understand.
Yep, sounds good. So I met Bob in 1988. I started wrestling. I won one match, lost 20, worst guy in the school. And then I was introduced to Bob in 1988, and 1989 was in the state finals. You know, second out in 1200 schools, ended up being a state champion in Greco. Bob took me under his wing. He used to let me come to his garage Friday night. I'd sleep on the garage floor, on the mat, Friday night, Saturday night. We get 2 to 3 workouts a day. Sometimes I get a little treat and be able to surf lowers with him. Bob changed my life, not only for the sport of wrestling with technique. He gave me technique that, for me, I would have just been an average wrestler, but he took me to Russia, invested a ton in me, took me all around the country. Then 9 years of competing, I'm like, I'm gonna do what Bob did. So I went back and I've been teaching and coaching wrestling and surfing for the last 33 years at the high school level in the high school public education.
Brian Schnell is here to tell us a little bit about testimony with him and Bob.
Thank you. So I've known Drew my whole life. I actually met Drew on a church surf trip back in probably the early 80s, like 84, 85. And my friend introduced me. He's all, look at this guy. We go over and Drew's has got this tray of vitamins. And we're like, what are you doing? He's like, my dad makes me eat this every day. So that was my first introduction to Drew and his dad. His dad was with us. And then me and Drew went to Shore Cliffs together, high school, San Clemente High. And I got into martial arts later on, around 1994. Did that for a few years, took over school here in town. And then a friend of mine, he's like, hey, I got together with Bob. We're training. He's looking for a place to train. Can we use your place? And I was like, well, absolutely. You know, I love Drew. I've known Shane my whole life, and I want to get Bob in there. So this is the early 2000s, right when mixed martial arts was just starting to come out. And I was probably about 25 at the time, and not a lot of people want to do mixed martial arts. Everybody want to do one thing. And the cool thing, like you mentioned about Bob, was he not only did wrestling, he did sambo, he did judo, he did other things that if it was wrestling or grappling involved, he wanted to learn it just to know what those guys were learning and add that to his skills. No matter who I had in my class, believer or non-believer, at the end of class, he's like, everybody come around, we're praying right now. And people look right at me and they're like, I don't believe in God. I said, and he looked right at me, he's like, you get over here now. And they're like, yes, sir. And so it wasn't a demanding voice, but when he spoke, everybody in my club always looked at him and listened. No matter what he was saying, people were like stopping, like it was gold coming out of his mouth.
And I'm here now with Bill, and I'm pretty sure he's got something to say about Bob.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bill Hoskin, I'm a black belt under Higa Machado. Been doing it for over 30 years. Bob I've known for like 25 years through jiu-jitsu and wrestling and strength and conditioning, weightlifting. We've done it all. Surfing, doing a lot of surfing. And one of the stories I want everybody to remember is that Bob Anderson went to Brazil back, I don't know exactly, 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and he met one of the greatest Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighters, great guy, great athlete, went there to go surfing with him and practice wrestling and teach him wrestling. His name was Halls Gracie, and Halls wanted to learn wrestling. So Bob was the man, Captain America they called him. Captain America was Bob Anderson. And Bob actually showed them a submission, shoulder dislocation, and they said, oh, Captain America, wow, well, Americana. They're calling him Americana, right? But they named the move, because he was American, they called it Americana. Bob was one of these great people I met through this journey of, teaching jiu-jitsu for over 30 years. And I really miss him. He was a good friend of mine, and I loved his deep voice. I was like, I'm driving down this cliffs of Palos Verdes one day, and I go, hey, Bob, that was Rickson Gracie and his girlfriend over there. And he's like, well, Bill, turn around. Let's go say hi. And I'm like, yeah. So we went over there, and that picture in the slideshow today was me, Bob, and Rickson. So I just wanted to mention that Bob Anderson was, when you think of the Americana, that was because of Bob Anderson.
And we're here with Sean's going to tell us, I believe, something about a Bob Anderson story.
I have so many Bob Anderson stories. I've known him since I was 13 years old and wrestled with his son, Drew. And I can tell you that Bob came into my life many times through my life, but it was always at a time when I was in need and I was going through troubles. So at 13, I was a troubled kid, and I think Bob and wrestling saved me. Another time was right when he had been in the Olympic team and coaching. I was also going through a rough patch, probably in my 20s, but he came into my life and prayed for me, and he was there. Again, in my 37 or so, I happened to live in Torrance, and I was doing jiu-jitsu. He came in, and just serendipity, he's back in my life again like that. And then lastly, going through another rough patch in mid-40s. And he was there for the whole thing. And he's just such a special person. He took me, opened my mind to the world, being a kid from San Clemente here. and going to the Soviet Union and seeing how people lived there and meeting Gogi and just all the friendships. He just opened my mind up to a lot of things, and because of him, I'm still training, doing jiu-jitsu, having a blast.
2 short stories. Okay, back 2011, Bob and I were in really good shape, still surfing a lot. We'd been paddling, and so we go over to the surf week at Waikiki, and it's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Surf was 2 to 3 foot and terrible. I had gotten a condo for us to stay in. We could walk to the beach. On Wednesday, we got up and you could hear it. It was the biggest swell they had in Waikiki in 15 years. Triple overhead outside in the point. Threes was double overhead. Bob and I went out and charged it. Bob got a wave. He dropped in, and he's all the way at the bottom with a body height above his head, and a lady on the beach, photographer, 1200 millimeter telephoto, got the shot. Now we fast forward to 2024. Bob is pretty frail, walking with a walker. I went over to see him. I used to have a timeshare in Maui, so I was at my timeshare, and then I came over and we talked and decided to go to lunch together. And Bernadine said, there's a health food place right down the street, 5 minutes from here. So we go down there. This beautiful lady shows up that's our waitress. And we could tell she had some kind of an accent. And I go, where are you from? What's your accent? She goes, I'm from Brazil. Bob just lights up and he goes, Brazil? I know. What's the name of the group? The
Gracie family. Yeah.
Gracie. I know the Gracie family really well, and they had a chapter in their book about me, which is called the Americana, Bob.
Yeah, a man just came up and told us about it. Yeah.
Okay, so he taught him the Americana and stuff like that. Okay, so she just gets a smile, and she's just beautiful, and she goes, hey, you got to meet my friend from Chile. So this other beautiful tall lady shows up. We have these 2 young gals just goo-goo-eyeing over Bob and me. And so we finish lunch and go back out to my car. He's walking on his walker, gets in the car and he goes, Walty, we still got it. We're the king of the chicks. And I go, I hadn't seen him be happy for so long. And he was like from ear to ear smiling, just totally pumped.
I'm here with Gene Barney Bernard, and I have a feeling he's got some sort of Bob Anderson story for us.
Oh, I think I could come up with a couple of them. All right, so I first met Bob at South High. We wrestled on the same wrestling team. And then later on in life, after I went in the Navy out of high school, I came back. I started going to Cerritos Junior College. Bob was wrestling for AIA at the time and came over to work out with me. I was wrestling 191s. He was still about 168, somewhere in that neighborhood, and he kicked my butt all over the mat. He was a hero to a lot of people. Hero to his children, hero to the people that he worked with and mentored and all that kind of stuff. He was bigger than life. But I don't think it was mentioned, well, it was mentioned today, but there's another hero in this story, and the hero is Bernadette. She sacrificed a whole lot of her life to help not only Darlene with her health issues, but her brother, where she left Maui and spent time here to do that, and then invited him to come back and live and took care of him there again. In this day and age, there's not a lot of siblings that would do that for somebody in Bob's condition. It would be more like, well, I think you ought to go to a nursing home, or you ought to do this or do that. But I respect that a lot, and I really believe that God will bless her for that.
I'm here with Joshua Paskowitz, and I'm pretty sure he's going to tell us some sort of Bob Anderson story. Is that what I'm feeling like?
One thing that he taught me, even though I never won a wrestling match, but because I was terrible at it, but he taught me how to have a little bit of self-confidence. He was able to loan people his self-confidence, and he was such a powerful and self-assured person that he was able to give that in the most graceful and the most giving and very aloha style, to give that to the young the young men who needed that. And he was able to give everyone a little bit more confidence and give them a little bit more straightness in their spine and a little bit more, pep in their step and a little bit more feeling of confidence. And, as a dad now of a 17-year-old boy, I can tell you it's priceless, and we are so blessed to have had Mr. Anderson be a part of our community and shape our town the way he did. And I will always remember him, I will always love him, and always be there for the Anderson family. The confidence that Bob was able to give to me and so many other young men was not only for wrestling, but also for the arts, for our own lives, for any way we wanted to shape that and use that in our own world. He gave that to us, and he gave us the opportunity to feel like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go up here, I'm going to do my thing, and I 100% am going to do it with just confidence and integrity, and that's what he taught us, to just be, be your own man, have confidence, have integrity, and look out for one another.
So I'm lifting. I never lifted before him.
Right,
Anyway, I'm lifting, and he looks at me and he says, "Why do they call you caveman?" I mean, I'm lifting at the time. I'm doing incline flies with, decent weight. And I'm in the middle of it. And he goes, "I know women stronger than you. They should call you cave woman." Oh my God. And I missed that one on the mic earlier. That would have cracked the place up. But it's true. And the worst part about it, I'm mid-rep when he's saying this. And I start losing my mind. I'm like, ah! Like I wasn't offended.
You got to do it with the Bob voice too. What are you talking about, Joseph? You're a cave woman.
My dad and Bob they wrestled, competed against each other in college wrestling. And there was one day, I was probably not much older than my daughter, 7 or 8 years old. My dad's telling me, "Oh yeah, one of my good friends from college, we competed in wrestling, might be moving to San Clemente. He's got 2 sons, and he's saying, yeah, they live in Seal Beach, and he wants to move here because Shane's getting in kind of with the wrong crowd, so they want to move to San Clemente." And so I remember the first day they came to our house, and Bob comes walking in. He's like, what? How did he wrestle you, Dad? He's like so much bigger than you. And he's like, I don't know. He just kept growing after college. I don't know what happened. They started the kids wrestling program, and of course, Drew and I wrestled, and that evolved into kids wrestling. They threw us on the mat. I think first grade. The first time we went wrestling is up in L.A. somewhere. And they put the whole thing together. It was a completely informal wrestling match. And I just remember going through this corridor and through the gym, like this dungeon. It's like we come into this little room, and there's mats on the floor, and there's these kids, young kids there, Mexicans and little Asian kids, and they just started pairing us up. And it's like, threw us on the mat. I had no idea what to expect, and it was battle time. That was our intro to wrestling, and then we got started to do the formal tournaments and all that. But with Bob, Shane, Drew, my dad, and another coach from Dana Hills, rode the train from the border to Mazatlan, and for a surf trip. And I did that trip with them. The most terrifying, incredible adventure I've ever been on. I'll never forget it.
We are with no other than Ramon, and I believe he's got one heck of a story to tell. Is that true, my man?
Well, we all got stories, right?
Yes, sir.
Especially with Bob, and Bob always is one to give us stories. And so my story with Bob is I remember coming down, meeting him for the very first time in San Clemente. I was talking with him, and he said, you got to be you can be an Olympic wrestler. You got to come. I said, no, I'm a football player. And I said, no. He goes, you need to be a wrestler for God. And I'm like, and he started preaching to me or reaching out to me and saying, Philippians 4:13, you can do all things in Christ who gives you strength, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, who is this guy? And but he's a strong, athletic man, and that really loved God. And I said, what? And then he prayed with us during wrestling practice during our breaks, and then he'd share a Bible story. And then I'm like, man, this guy really loves God. And this is my first introduction here down in San Clemente, and I think
and then I met Moms, which is Janet, and they invited me in their home, and then I slept in the garage in the wrestling room, and then we worked out in the wrestling room, and then the stories would just come and come, and so every weekend this is what we'd be doing, and I was just so grateful for it. But kind of analyzing Bob's life is really what he gave to me was the acronym LIFE. Because I try to look at Bob and I go, he left me a legacy.
Here we are with Jody Sloan, and I do believe he's got a Bob Anderson story or memory for us. Is that right?
I do. We were roommates on a couple of teams that went overseas that wrestled in Iran, in Bulgaria, and in Poland. And one of the memories that I got to reminisce with Bob about just the week before he passed was it was pretty cool. We remembered that we were the only fortunate ones in the dormitory in Poland to have a room that was not heated, and it was dead of winter. And we felt certain that we were going to freeze to death. So we layered up. We put on everything that we had in our duffel bags to try to stay warm, got underneath the covers, and I was on one bunk, Bob was on the other, and I looked across at him, and I could see the vapor coming from his mouth because it was so cold in the room. And I recommended that we pull our beds together. And Bob was not going to have any of that. And so needless to say,
Jody, we're not doing that, okay?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that is not going to happen. Okay, then we'll just freeze to death. But so we did that. We were on a very eventful trip to Poland, which was the last U.S. team, not Poland, Iran, was the last U.S. team that was in Iran before the revolution. And it was during that time, it was a real period of unrest. We were roommates together there then as well. And we underwent some threats and some challenges there with that team. They ended up canceling the international tournament, and then we flew on to some other domain. I don't remember if it was Bulgaria or Poland or somewhere else. I remember when I first met Janet, I thought, my gosh, how did this guy score this beautiful woman? This old gnarly dude. And he really did with her, and you can see it in all of his kids, especially Drew.
And we're here with Diana, and she is going to tell us something that I believe is a Bob Anderson story.
All right, so they moved down here, and I went to school with Drew at Concordia. And we all knew that his dad was this larger-than-life wrestling coach, and Drew did like a commercial. I think he went out of the country. All this stuff happened, and I've known Drew obviously a long time. He was the best man at my wedding, and Bob has always been amazing. He says your name, you're in trouble, right? You're like, he's all, Diana, you're all, oh my gosh. So I went to Boulder College of Massage Therapy, and right when I came home, we're all hanging out. He's all, you do massage now. I'm like, yes. And so he's like, all right. He hooked me up with wrestlers, athletes, mixed martial artists, and from the get-go, I was working on athletes, which I already worked on surfers and skaters. So I go over to Shane's house, and Bob's all, Diana, you need to adjust people's sacrums. I'm not supposed to do that. He's all, nope, here we go. He throws somebody down. I don't know if it was like Mila, and he shows me how to do it. And so he's all, okay, Shane, and Shane looks at me, and I adjust Shane's sacrum, I adjusted Drew's sacrum, I think I adjusted my husband's sacrum, and I adjusted everybody's sacrum, and I was like, okay, and it was interesting.
Wow,
so
yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, I ended up working on him a lot, and he would just tap out, or he'd say, Diana, and you just kind of freeze when he says your name, just because his voice.
I know, right? I got Jason Booth here, and why do I feel like he's going to have a story for us?
Well, I got a couple good Bob stories and stuff like that. I had the fortune to meet Bob in 1988. I was trying to exit out of wrestling and trying to be a surfer, but Bob somehow got wind that I used to wrestle, and he invited me into the program. And so we had a wrestling program called the Jets, and I joined the wrestling program in the summer. he lined me up with another wrestler that was about 50 pounds bigger than me, and I'd have to train with him. His name was Heath Sims, and they ended up taking me to a national event in Fresno. And Heath was fortunate enough to have family money, and so we actually got to fly in a little Cessna plane. So me, Bob, and Heath, and another guy were in this Cessna plane. I thought the plane was going down because we're in a small little Cessna plane, and the wind was kind of blowing through the grapevine to get it into Fresno, and I was like a little bit petrified. I thought this could be my plane crash. So we did the tournament, and it was a success, and we had fun, and so that was a good experience. And then the following year came in, and I stayed with Bob in the program, and he taught me what I never did. A lot of personal one-on-one training with him, stepped in the wrestling room, like I've been hearing, but he did start to enforce and he knew how to get the best out of people. In one way or another, he knew how to get you to dig deep and to grind. And that year, by that teaching and that lesson and his techniques and his practice, he got me to wrestle the best I've ever wrestled. Actually beat qualified wrestlers that were placed higher in state, but I ended up getting to wrestle against them, beat them in leagues, then went into CIF and became runner-up at CIF. And then he pushed me, say, hey, I think you can do really well in state, even possibly win state. But we had to get through Masters first, so you got to grind in this last tournament. So he goes, I want you to put it in this whole week. You train with me this whole week. So we went on his program and trained the week, and we got to wrestle in the Masters tournament, and I qualified in Masters, fourth in Masters, and then went on to state and was in my second match, and first time I got pinned. So Bob kicked me in the butt, and my other coach cheered me up and said, hey, you could still qualify in place. But with that strength and that perseverance, I was able to end up taking sixth in state, wrestle, and be a sixth place wrestler from Bob's endurance and from the coach. So after that, he saw some good things in me, and there's one more little story. He had a Japanese wrestling team come from Japan, and it was kind of their pre-qualification for the Olympics. And he goes, I want you to train with them. So I trained with them. They're only here for about a week or two, and then we put an exhibition match on at San Clemente High School. And so I got to wrestle against my senior year against some Olympic wrestlers from Japan.
Wow.
So that was a pretty great experience. You know, I mean, they pretty much tossed me around, but they were respectful, and it was really fun. It was a great experience. And Bob gave me one of these jet wrestling singlets, and I was pretty honored to wear that and have that memory with Bob. And then but I never got to experience to surf with Bob. It was something that I didn't know that he was a great surfer, but I'm glad to see that he loves surfing as much as possible. And
oh wow, I didn't know you didn't know he didn't surf. Oh wow.
I didn't know.
I mean, I didn't know you didn't know he surfed.
Yeah, I didn't know either. Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't pick that part up on Bob. He kept me on the wrestling mat.
And we're here with Eric, and I believe he's got a Bob Anderson story as well.
I do. So first, I'd like to say that it was a privilege to come out and be able to provide support to the entire Anderson family. But Bob, I met him in 1985. I was at the San Clemente wrestling team, and Bob's son, as we know, Drew, we went to middle school together, we went to high school together, and of course then it was logical that he joined the wrestling team. Bob would be there to help in an assistant coach capacity, and then eventually had the Jets training center up here and so forth. And with that then became opportunities to go to tournaments and to go to clinics, and he was always doing something to give wrestlers who wanted to do it opportunities to get better. And that was his life mission, and you could have as much or you could have as little as you want. And it was always amazing. If you wanted to get better, he was there ready to help you get better. So one season, though, the thing about Bob, though, is, as everyone knows, he's competitive. We went up to a tournament in San Luis Obispo, and we did terrible. We just all got annihilated, and people weren't focused, and we're teenagers, right? And on the way back, Bob was silent. And about halfway through the trip, he starts yelling at us about our poor performance. And it was honest, not what we wanted to hear. And he would get so upset, he would pull over to the side of the road, order us all out of the van. He would drive about a mile or so up the road. We would have to run to the van, get back in the van, and this happened about 3 or 4 times all the way home. So we ran probably 10 miles by the end of the trip, just driving home from San Luis Obispo. But you know what? And at the time, it was, I suppose, terrifying and upsetting. But that kind of stamina and that kind of sacrifice that he instilled in people like myself is literally one of the roots of the success that I've enjoyed today.
I think we should have a shout out for Janet Anderson for being the muscles behind Bob being the guy that he turned out to be. She was the gal that was the muscle behind him getting everything done, just being able to stay on track.
She was everything when he was busy, when Shane said that my dad wasn't there all the time. But who was there? Mom. And she was taking care of the boys and making sure that they had all that they needed. We've known her for a long time and seen a lot of the stuff that they've gone through. And I told you said that Bible verse in Proverbs, it says that when a man finds a good wife, he finds a good thing. And the thing is Janet was the backbone for Bob and the boys. They could never have done what they did if it hadn't been for their rock of a mother. Jesus was obviously the center focus, but God used Janet to be there to make sure that things stayed. When things didn't go right, she was there to comfort him and pray with him. Same with the boys when they were growing up and their challenges.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah.